America, land of the free, home of the brave, a nation built on laws. These laws are the bedrock of our society, providing structure and order, ensuring that every citizen has a framework within which to pursue their dreams and aspirations. From the moment the Declaration of Independence was signed, the United States has prided itself on being a nation where the rule of law prevails. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights. These words, penned by our founding fathers, have echoed through the centuries, inspiring countless generations to strive for a more perfect union. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are not just words on a page, they are the promises that have drawn millions to our shores seeking a better life, a chance to be part of the American dream. That's the American dream, right? A house with a white picket fence, a family, a stable job, and the freedom to live life on your own terms. It's an ideal that has been sold to us for generations, a vision of prosperity and happiness. But what happens when that dream bumps up against a system that feels rigged? When the promises of equality and opportunity seem out of reach for many? When the weight of bills, taxes, and regulations feels like an insurmountable burden? What happens when some Americans decide those laws don't apply to them? Enter the sovereign citizen. This movement, born out of frustration and a sense of disenfranchisement, challenges the very foundation of our legal system. They're not your typical revolutionaries. They don't march in the streets with banners or engage in violent uprisings. Instead, they blend into the fabric of everyday life, often unnoticed by those around them. They don't wear uniforms or wave flags. They are ordinary citizens, living in our neighborhoods, working in our offices, and participating in our communities. They live among us, working day jobs, raising families. On the surface, they seem like any other American, but beneath that facade lies a deep-seated belief that the government has overstepped its bounds. But scratch the surface and you'll find a deep-seated distrust of the government. They believe that the system is corrupt, that the laws are unjust, and that they have the right to live free from governmental interference. They believe they are exempt from taxes, free from driver's licenses, unbound by the very fabric of American law. To them, the government's authority is an illusion, a construct that they are not obligated to recognize. They are a movement shrouded in legal jargon and fueled by a potent cocktail of ideology and anger. Their arguments are often complex, filled with references to obscure legal principles and historical documents. The sovereign citizen movement might seem like a fringe group, a collection of conspiracy theorists and legal loopholes enthusiasts. But their beliefs have real-world implications, affecting not just their lives but the lives of those around them. But their defiance of the law has real-world consequences. From courtroom disruptions to violent confrontations, their actions challenge the very essence of our legal system. From courtroom disruptions to violent confrontations, their actions are a stark reminder of the fragility of our social contract. They test the limits of our legal system, pushing boundaries and forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of law and order. Their existence begs the question, in a nation founded on the rule of law, what happens when some citizens decide the rules no longer apply? How do we reconcile the ideals of freedom and justice with the reality of dissent and defiance? These are questions that challenge the very core of our identity as a nation. To understand the sovereign citizen movement, we need to take a trip back in time. This journey will unravel the complex tapestry of American history, revealing how certain events and ideologies have shaped the beliefs of this movement. Our journey begins in the aftermath of the Civil War. The nation was in turmoil, grappling with the immense task of rebuilding and healing the deep wounds left by the conflict. The year is 1868, and America is struggling to stitch itself back together. Towns and cities are being rebuilt and the social fabric of the nation is being rewoven. The 14th Amendment is ratified, granting citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves. This amendment was a monumental step towards equality, aiming to provide a legal foundation for civil rights. This landmark amendment, meant to ensure equality under the law, ironically becomes a cornerstone of sovereign citizen ideology. They interpret it in ways that diverge significantly from its original intent. Fast forward to the early 20th century, America is now a burgeoning industrial power with cities expanding and new technologies transforming daily life. The Federal Reserve is established in 1913, sparking conspiracy theories about a shadowy cabal controlling the world's finances. This institution was created to stabilize the economy, but it quickly became a focal point for those suspicious of centralized power. This event, coupled with the rise of income tax and the expansion of federal power, fuels a growing distrust of the government among certain groups. The introduction of income tax in particular was seen as an overreach, infringing on personal freedoms. These historical events, seemingly disparate, converge to form the bedrock of sovereign citizen beliefs. They weave together a narrative that portrays the government as an overreaching entity, infringing on individual liberties. They view the 14th Amendment as creating a distinction between a natural person and a corporate person, the latter being subject to government control. This interpretation is central to their ideology, as they believe it exempts them from certain laws. They believe the Federal Reserve is an illegitimate entity, usurping the government's power to coin money. This belief is rooted in a deep-seated mistrust of financial institutions and their influence over government policies. These beliefs, often rooted in misinterpretations of legal history, form the foundation of their ideology. They selectively interpret laws and historical events to support their views, creating a framework that justifies their resistance to government authority. They arm themselves with pseudo-legal arguments, twisting legal language into a weapon against the very system they reject. This approach often leads to confrontations with authorities, as they challenge the legitimacy of laws and regulations. Why would anyone choose to live life outside the law? The answer, like most things, is complicated. For some, it's about freedom. They see the government as an oppressive force, encroaching on their individual liberties. They long for a return to a simpler time, a time before taxes and regulations when individuals were truly free. For others, the motivation is financial. They're tired of paying taxes, drowning in debt, struggling to make ends meet. Sovereign citizen ideology offers a seductive escape, a world where they can declare themselves exempt from financial obligations. But perhaps the most powerful motivator is frustration. Frustration with a system that feels rigged against them, a government that seems distant and unresponsive. They feel powerless, ignored, and unheard. Sovereign citizen ideology offers them a sense of control, a way to fight back against a system they believe is broken. It's important to remember that not all sovereign citizens are cut from the same cloth. Their motivations are as diverse as their backgrounds. Some are driven by genuine belief, others by desperation, and still others by a dangerous combination of both. The sovereign citizen movement sits at the heart of a fundamental tension in American society, the balance between individual liberty and collective order. This movement, which has gained traction over the years, is rooted in a deep-seated belief that the government has overstepped its bounds and infringed upon the rights of individuals. Sovereign citizens argue that they are the true keepers of the Constitution, the ones who understand its original intent and are committed to preserving its principles. The government views them as a threat, a group of anti-government extremists who undermine the rule of law. Law enforcement agencies have labeled them as domestic terrorists, citing numerous incidents where sovereign citizens have engaged in violent confrontations with authorities. These confrontations often arise during routine traffic stops, or when sovereign citizens refuse to comply with court orders, leading to dangerous standoffs. Their refusal to pay taxes, obey traffic laws, or cooperate with law enforcement is seen as a direct challenge to the very fabric of society. By rejecting these fundamental obligations, sovereign citizens disrupt the social order and create a sense of chaos and unpredictability. This behavior not only endangers public safety but also undermines the trust and cooperation that are essential for a functioning society. Sovereign citizens, on the other hand, see themselves as patriots upholding the true spirit of the Constitution. They believe that the government has strayed far from the founding principles and that it is their duty to resist and reclaim their rights. This perspective is deeply rooted in a historical narrative that glorifies the American Revolution and the fight against tyranny. They believe they are exercising their God-given rights, resisting government overreach, and reclaiming their individual sovereignty. For them, the struggle is not just about legal technicalities, but about a profound moral and philosophical stance. They see themselves as the last line of defense against a government that has become too powerful and intrusive. They view the government's actions as tyranny, a violation of their fundamental freedoms. This belief, fuels their resistance and justifies their actions in their eyes. They argue that when the government becomes oppressive, it is not only their right, but their duty to push back and reclaim their liberties. This clash of perspectives highlights a fundamental question. What does it mean to be a citizen in a democratic society? Is citizenship about unquestioning obedience to laws and regulations, or is it about active engagement and resistance when those laws are perceived as unjust? This debate is not new. It has been a central theme in American history, from the civil rights movement to modern-day protests. Is it absolute freedom, the right to live life on your own terms, regardless of the consequences for others? This idea of absolute freedom is appealing to many, but it raises questions about the responsibilities that come with living in a community. How do we balance individual desires with the needs and rights of others? Can true freedom exist without some form of collective agreement and cooperation? Or is it about accepting certain limitations on individual liberty for the sake of a functioning society? This perspective argues that some level of compromise is necessary to ensure order, safety, and the common good. It suggests that true freedom is not the absence of all constraints, but the ability to live in a society where everyone's rights are respected and protected. The sovereign citizen movement forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions. It challenges us to think deeply about the nature of freedom, the role of government, and the responsibilities of citizenship. While their methods and beliefs may be extreme, they bring to the forefront issues that are often overlooked in mainstream discourse. It's easy to dismiss them as a fringe group, but their existence exposes the fragility of our social contract. Their actions remind us that the principles we take for granted, such as the rule of law and democratic governance, are not self-sustaining. They require active participation, vigilance, and a willingness to engage in difficult conversations about the direction of our society. It reminds us that the rule of law is not a given, but a delicate balance that requires constant vigilance and engagement from all citizens. In a democratic society, the health of our social contract depends on our collective commitment to uphold the principles of justice, equality, and mutual respect. The sovereign citizen movement, with all its complexities and contradictions, serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing struggle to define and defend these values.